Steve Bannon is in the anti-China camp, and he believes that Israel is dragging the US into a multi-generational, devastating conflict with Iran. It was the same alienation Charlie Kirk felt in his last days and last moments as he was basically being besieged by Netanyahu's cutouts.
Max Blumenthal just reveals how Israel has lost the American right, and in this clip he gets into this major schism developing on the right over Israel for the first time in my life. What does it mean for US politics, our culture going forward, and whether America finally discards the Israel first mentality? Let's get right into it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, Laura Loomer is someone who's sort of you could call her a private intelligence figure, but it's not really intelligence that she's producing. It's more like misinformation and muddying the waters and smearing on behalf of her clients, who include Israeli cutouts. Anna Paulina Luna, whose real name is Anna Paulina Meyerhofer, and had a career in the, let's say, entertainment industry before she was in Congress, is also a subject of major Israeli influence. And what they're simply trying to do is shift the discussion to an official adversary based on pure conjecture. I mean, Laura Loomer at the same time has been, for weeks, she's been promoting this fear-mongering narrative about an imminent Al-Qaeda attack inside US cities. So everything that she's trying to do is trying to distract us and deflect from the reality that's staring us in the face. And she also, before Charlie Kirk was killed, was heavily attacking him. I mean, she was one of the first people to launch the attack on Charlie Kirk from the right, accusing him of speaking out of both sides of his mouth, of being, on the one hand, pro-Israel, and on the other hand, hosting Tucker Carlson and hosting, anti-Zionist figures like Dave Smith at his events. And so Laura Loomer can't really seem to get her story straight. But who is she speaking for here? I mean,
Yeah, Max is right here. As far as Laura Loomer, I agree with Max. She doesn't exactly produce intelligence, at least in the context we're talking about intelligent conversation. But Max is right. These two are trying to steer people into thinking that China is involved in Charlie's death, or China is a new adversary that the U.S. has to worry about, as Israel is obviously at the forefront of actual influence in the United States. It's so undeniable and ridiculous. It was Qatar. Everyone was funded by Qatar, but now we have to say, hey, China's the major threat. They want to distract you from the real focal point that ties U.S. interests into foreign policy, and that is Israel. And it's Ukraine, too, don't get me wrong, especially right now. It is China, too, to an extent where, Taiwan is kind of the beacon of what may be a new proxy war with China if you leave it to the chicken hawk right, some of which, calls themselves dissidents, to produce a new proxy war with another nuclear power. We don't need it, but what we can say regardless of all those things is Israel has actual tangible influence in our political system. More and more are awakening to that fact, and these two and others are trying to deflect from that fact.
It looks like, right, in this case, she's speaking on Netanyahu's behalf and trying to get Americans or people in the MAGA world to blame China. And I don't know what she's referring to, what she could possibly be referring to, or where the evidence is, but it just doesn't stand to reason that China would have any role in this. I mean, Israel was heavily invested in the career and life of Charlie Kirk. What did China have to do with any of this?
Yeah. What it had to do with it is it stokes the flames of the neocons to want to go to war with another nuclear power. They don't apply the same lessons many of them rightly knew about the Ukraine situation to Taiwan. It's the same retardation, just applied to a new theater. And that's what a lot of the right embraces. I hate to say, the dissident left is way better on the China issue. Way better. It's not even close.
Yesterday was the anniversary of October the 7th, the day that Hamas attacked Israel. And in the aftermath of that day, everything has changed in Gaza. Gaza is devastated, destroyed by Israeli attack. And looking at what has happened, Max, and what's going on in the United States, because these people who are against the policies in the Middle East, these are not the far left progressive people, Democratic Party, and these are to the right side of the Republicans, like Steve Bannon. He came out and talked about the case of the Middle East, the war against Iran, the reality of October the 7th. Before going to your comment, here is what Steve Bannon said on his podcast.
Netanyahu have to approach. He totally trumped up, bald-faced lie about the Persians. They had greater strategic ambitions, and they didn't care if they sucked the United States into a 20 or 30-year war. Those days are over. President Trump has asserted himself that, hey, you are a protector. What did Ignatius say? He's given orders, right? He's given orders the way it should be. If they want to go do it on their own, hey, God bless you. Go for it. But do not suck us in. We're not in for this. It's outrageous what has happened over the last couple of years, and we still don't have an investigation on October 7th. And believe me, if the hands were clean of Netanyahu, you would have had an investigation and been out in 30 days. Write that down with your number 2 pencil, because that's going to come, and you're going to be shocked by it. There's no way that just kind of happened.
All right, me and Bannon have a different interpretation of this. I do think Netanyahu was essentially either giving orders or wielding control over Trump to get the U.S. sucked into that war with Iran, which we haven't heard of the end of. By the way, Netanyahu just started clamoring for more war, more regime change there, and saying that, hey, his nuclear weapons could strike Boston or New York City, and all this stupid propaganda. Also, in Trump's term, he exacerbated the war in Syria, which was, again, at the behest of Israel, who wanted to depose Assad. It had the U.S. siding with al-Qaeda to do that, and now the leader of Syria is an al-Qaeda emir, Julani. He's called al-Shara sometimes. So we have a different interpretation. That said, it is interesting that people like Steve Bannon seem to have had enough of this justifying Israel and the U.S.-Israeli relationship at all costs. The hypocrisy is just too glaring when, Bannon is one of the architects of America First, right? Of that original creed and mantra that surrounded Trump's campaign. And you're seeing more and more people on the right wake up to this and know that, hey, the cost of continuing to try to double down and back and justify this thing is so ridiculous. We have to discard that mentality and stop trying to defend it to the T. Oh, he's going to continue in a second.
You know what's important about Steve Bannon? That he's reaching the sort of audience that the left and the progressive cannot reach. And that's important for Israelis. Your take on that?
Well, Steve Bannon's been pushed out. I mean, he was pushed out first by Elon Musk. He is no longer chief of staff. He's sort of in the wilderness trying to wage this America First fight. And he's become hostile to, this was a longtime supporter of Israel. Steve Bannon was one of the founders of Breitbart with Andrew Breitbart, which was founded actually out of a meeting in Jerusalem with Benjamin Netanyahu, who seemingly promised money from his cabal of millionaires inside the United States for a new set of online conservative magazines. One of them was Gateway Pundit, another one is Breitbart. And Steve Bannon proudly declared that Breitbart, under his watch, after Andrew Breitbart's untimely death, was the most pro-Israel magazine in America. And now you can see the shift. He refers to Israel as a protectorate. He can see, finally, now that he's out of the administration, or maybe based on what he saw inside the administration, that Israel's interests are not aligned with the U.S. In fact, they contravene the U.S., and that Israel, as the ultimate frenemy, has more power to harm U.S. strategic interests than a supposed adversary.
That's the way to say it. He said that perfect. that the view is now more and more that people see Israel as an impediment to U.S. foreign policy, not an ally that pushes forward our agenda in the Middle East. Who could even argue that now? Is it America's agenda to station troops in the Middle East to support, the genocide in Gaza, which hopefully is subsided for now with a ceasefire? I'm not too optimistic that will last long. Endless wars, getting sucked into Israel's regime change desires and ambitions. There's no benefit to the American people from that. And I think, I'd go way further than Bannon, as you guys know. I'd withdraw all of our troops from the Middle East, shut down all foreign-based U.S. bases, not only in the Middle East, but in the world. That would be true America First to its core. That's the extension of America First. They'll never say it that way. But this is an unmistakable shift. He's right. Bannon's origin story in politics is, similar in regard to Breitbart as Charlie Kirk's, funded by very rich Zionist donors. But now they're just jumping off ship. You can't stay on this sinking ship forever. No one wants to do that because it will imperil you, and this will age poorly. People complicit with Israel's madness right now will not hear the end of it.
Steve Bannon is in the anti-China camp, and he believes that Israel is dragging the U.S. into a multi-generational, devastating conflict with Iran that is draining its stockpiles of THAAD missiles, which would have been given to Taiwan and other Indo-Pacific vassal states that are supposed to wage the frontline war against China. And so Steve Bannon, from an imperialist perspective, sees Israel as an obstacle, if not a parasitic force that is just draining the lifeblood of the U.S. military and U.S. empire.
I think Max has that exactly right of where the dynamics on the right are in regard to foreign policy, where China is viewed as a major threat they actually want to confront militarily for the same idiotic and stupid reasons that the liberal establishment wanted to confront Russia. And by the way, some of the conservative establishment too, I hate to say. That wasn't a non-bipartisan cause, and it remains so. And Trump's dedication to staying there shows that it remains so. But Max is right. That is where some of these people's ambitions are. Some of the America First ambitious people are. Their heads are facing toward China, pointing U.S. bayonets toward China, and not Hamas. They believe that will take away from, missile supplies, funding, etc., that it would take to defend Taiwan in this grand new proxy war that many of them do want. And I hate to say that. But it's so ridiculous.
And another figure in the camp, the Israel critical camp that is incipient on the America First right, is Matt Gaetz, who hosted me on his show on One American News about Charlie Kirk and Israel. And Matt Gaetz was just on an episode of Tim Pool where he was reflecting on his time in Congress and going to AIPAC before he sort of had an awakening. And he said that every member of Congress would wear a QR code, and AIPAC members could simply take a photo of the QR code or scan the QR code with their phones in order to donate to that member of Congress. Imagine how alienating that is, to be treated like you're almost at some kind of slave auction surrounded by these donors representing a foreign state. So
this whole thing is an utter humiliation ritual, from kissing the wall to being a QR code scan machine for pro-Zionist donors. It's so comical. If it weren't so sad, we'd just be laughing at this endlessly like it's some plot to some fictional novel. But that's what plays out when it comes to the Israel lobby, and I don't blame Max for chuckling while he talks about that. Who could defend this? This is so preposterous in so many ways, in every way.
The alienation continues to grow. It was the same alienation Charlie Kirk felt in his last days and last moments as he was basically being besieged by Netanyahu's cutouts. It's the same alienation that was exuded by Tucker Carlson in his last mono, I think a historic mono, when he just raised the question that many of us who started to question this relationship many years ago, especially on the left, asked, which is, how is this tiny little country able to dominate and influence an unparalleled global superpower? How does that even make sense? And how is that good for this country?
Yeah.
And he went on for 20 more minutes about that before bringing on Jeffrey Sachs, someone, I don't know if you've hosted him, but he's making the anti-imperial geopolitical circuit even more electrifying than it currently is.
Yeah, that is right. Jeffrey Sachs is a hero, and I'm so glad that Tucker Carlson has a close relationship with him. I think he's had him on his podcast something like 4 or 5 times to interview Jeffrey Sachs about his thoughts about foreign policy. On this show, we love and adore Jeffrey Sachs. He has very good non-interventionist foreign policy views that align with what would actually be America first, despite the absurd slogan that the Trump administration is still running with. But I'm also with Max that Tucker's monologue on Israel was downright heroic. Please do watch that. It's about a week old now. I went for that on this channel, but it truly is heroic. Tucker is totally right about the perverted nature of the U.S.-Israeli relationship, and though even Tucker wouldn't go as far as I would go to, condemning it completely by saying, hey, we need to bring all the troops home, shut down all those bases, end all aid. I mean, I do think he sides with the last view, but he does skewer the toxic nature of this relationship, bringing up even such things as pardoning Jonathan Pollard's handler, Israel's spying on Americans in the form of Pollard working for the CIA, taking U.S. secrets back to Israel. Then those secrets went to the Soviet Union. He brought up the USS Liberty, where 34 sailors died in the context of the Six-Day War on a ship attacked by Israel. And that's our closest ally in the Middle East, right? And all these madness, the madness of all the wars that the U.S. gets brought into, not just because of Israel. There are complicit neocons on our side supporting all this. I shouldn't even say our side, in our criminal government supporting this. And just laying it down very fiercely, very profusely. I just really appreciate Tucker's turn against Israel, which is very apparent. And he's not the only one. He's probably the most important figure on America's political right. But Candace Owens goes much farther. She's been sick of it too for a long time. Been talking about it for a long time. Is it as long back as I would like? No. But she's there now, and that counts for something. It used to be just Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan, and the rest of the right was out to the wilderness. Now that's not the case. And even people like Megyn Kelly, for daring to host Marjorie Taylor Greene on her show and saying, no one under 30 rightly supports Israel, that's not that much of a hyperbole, by the way. It's not exactly technically true, but it's not even close to being untrue, right? And for that, she's enduring attacks. They're saying she's a turncoat, right? The same things and pressures that you saw toward Charlie Kirk at the end of his life. So I think Max is right on here. He really has the finger on the pulse of the American right and where it's moving, in a unique way for being a dissident leftist, especially on this. He really sees, I think, the forest for the trees in all this, the schism that's developing and how it's going to affect the American right going forward. AIPAC's stranglehold might not last forever. It can last for a few more years. I do think it can last for more and more years, but the swing in approval polls is not going to be enough for the Israel lobby to maintain enough political capital to be as pro-Israel, I think, in the next decade as it has been in my lifetime. This is not your father's Israel views from the right now. And that's a good thing. This is a hopeful trajectory. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know down below. Do you agree with Max Blumenthal? Is he right about where the right is moving, the schism, how it's affecting U.S. politics? Let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Dialogue Works. Nima is awesome. Love his podcast. Thank you, Nima, for having Max. This was a great one. And if you like my video and you like my commentary, please consider joining as a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can help support the channel. That would mean the world to me, and I'd appreciate it. And in return for that, I'll give you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.